From the studios of Staten Island Community Television, you're watching In the Bleachers, the TV show for the world's most passionate sports fans. Hello, everyone. I'm Jaime Hixson.
And this is Hector Bosa, the hardest, baddest, sexiest man on cable access TV, on the phone, and somewhere in the unknown where I must see college basketball, wrestling to a degree, soccer, cricket, and Major League Baseball. Basketball, is it a disaster or dreams to play any way? Jamie, you must tell me about March Madness today. So
Yes,
let's
sir.
talk about March Madness, because we were talking about Cinderella teams in the NCAA. Who is the NCAA dream team or the Cinderella team that you think can pull it off?
Well, it's funny you mention that because the tournament, as you mentioned, is going to start officially tomorrow with the first four. So we're going to run down the matchups right now. Let's start with the first four, which are going to be played tomorrow and Wednesday.
Go ahead.
On the local front, we're proud to say that we've got a New York connection in the tournament because Long Island University is going to be playing in the first four. They have Radford taking place tomorrow night. And LIU wound up getting there by winning the Northeast Conference tournament. In fact, they had to get past Wagner in the championship game just to get the automatic berth. And for the record, Wagner's going to be playing in the NIT. They have Baylor in Texas tomorrow night. But tomorrow, also, LIU's playing Radford, and also St. Bonaventure, which is from upstate and represents the Atlantic 10. They've got one of the toughest first-round matchups right now because they have UCLA. And UCLA is a team that not a lot of people really counted on to be a tournament team. They had a very up-and-down season. On Wednesday, the first four ends with Syracuse. Out of the ACC, another team that no one expected to make the tournament. Some question why they even made the tournament in the first place because, quite frankly, they had a lot of really, really bad losses during the regular season. At the same time, you might want to take into consideration some of the good losses that they had, one of which happened to be to St. Bonaventure, which is in the tournament right now. Syracuse has Arizona State in the first four on Wednesday, and there's also Texas Southern playing North Carolina Central. And that officially concludes the first four. Then you've got round-robin action on Thursday and Friday. So the first round continues on Thursday. And we've got, these are the games that are going to be on Channel 2. We have Oklahoma taking on Rhode Island. And then another local product, Iona College, which won the Metro Atlantic Athletic Conference tournament. Iona has the unenviable task of playing Duke University in the first round on Thursday. This is going to be a game that's going to be played in Pittsburgh. And also on Channel 2, Kentucky's going to play Davidson. And Buffalo, the University at Buffalo, which won the Mid-American regular season and tournament titles, is going to play Arizona in the first round. And also taking place in the first round, these are the games that are going to be on cable. We have Tennessee playing Wright State. We have North Carolina Greensboro playing Gonzaga. Kansas is going to play Pennsylvania, which just snuck into the tournament, especially considering the fact that they had to go to the final buzzer to beat Harvard for the Ivy League title. And there's also Loyola of Chicago, a team that's in their first tournament in over 30 years. LIU is going to play the University of Miami, and that's a game that I'm going to be watching very closely because I've got some family in Miami. So let's see what the Hurricanes do in another tournament.
I mean, hopefully the weather will be good, too.
Mm-hmm. And also taking place, Seton Hall's playing in the tournament. They have North Carolina State. That's another cable game. And also, The Ohio State University is going to be playing a game against San Diego State. And also we have the Big East Conference champions, the tournament champions, that is, Villanova. They're going to be going up against the winner of one of the number 16 games. We also have Houston against San Diego State. We have Stephen F. Austin against Texas Tech in an all-Texas battle. Alabama's going to play Virginia Tech. Montana's playing Michigan. A lot of people are saying that Michigan might be the hot team that's peaking at the right time at this moment. They just coasted through the Big Ten tournament that was played at the Garden just a couple weeks ago. Something tells me that Michigan might be going on a pretty respectable run over here. So you ask me who my Cinderella team is?
Maybe, yes.
Dare I say that a team like maybe San Diego State could be the one team to watch for in this tournament? I would also look at Cincinnati, too, because the University of Cincinnati, they're burly, they're really, really physical. They play tremendous defense as well. And also, Florida is going to be playing the winner of the game for the 11th seed. So that takes care of the Thursday games. Then there's Friday.
Okay.
We've got Providence playing Texas A&M. There's also Purdue playing Cal State Fullerton, which won the Big West title. Cincinnati, who I thought is a team that's going to be making a pretty respectable run. They have Georgia State in the first round, and Georgia State is the same school that wound up pulling off an upset 4 years ago when they beat Baylor down in Orlando. We also have Marshall taking on Wichita State, and then the team that's making their tournament debut, Lipscomb University, which is a school that's located, I think, in the Nashville area. They're going to be going up against North Carolina. And to make matters worse, North Carolina is playing Lipscomb in Charlotte, which is, I would say, 90% Tar Heel fans. So expect the Tar Heels to at least coast through the Charlotte area and get to the Sweet 16. And we also have Butler taking on Arkansas. There's also Murray State and West Virginia. Murray State is a team that's also done very, very well in the tournament in the past. I think we might be seeing the first real Cinderella team possibly making a run of getting a win or two in this tournament, which is Murray State. They shoot the three very, very well, and they're really, really strong at point guard. And the other games to wrap up are Texas and Nevada, Kansas State and Creighton. Michigan State's going to play Bucknell, and then we have Xavier, which is one of the number one seeds. They're going to be playing the winner of the 16 matchup. Then we have Auburn playing the College of Charleston. We have New Mexico State against Clemson. Florida State's playing Missouri. Then we have Virginia, which is the number one overall seed in the tournament, playing Maryland-Baltimore County. TCU is going to play the winner of the 6-11 game, and then Xavier is going to play the winner of the other 16 game, I should say. So right now, Xavier, Virginia, Arizona, and Villanova are your four number one seeds. Virginia is the number one overall seed in the tournament. So right now, I'd say Murray State, and I would also give a nod to Creighton, too. Creighton has traditionally shot the three very, very well. They've had a lot of great shooters coming out of the program. So those would be my two Cinderella stories. The sleeper pick, probably either Cincinnati or Michigan. Michigan is probably the hottest team, but Cincinnati plays the best defense in the tournament.
So it all depends if you're going for offensive defense or if they're hot or not.
Mm-hmm.
More or less.
Yes, exactly.
I wanted to ask you, because this is something that
Hector, before we continue, I just wanted to mention Kenny Graham is on the other side of the glass right now, and he's going hard at work, going back and forth between taking care of a project of his in his office and also directing us behind the glass right now. Unfortunately, it's a little low on our end, Kenny. Can you boost up Hector's audio a little bit so we can hear him in the studio?
What
do you say there, Hector?
I'm fine. I'm fine.
Okay.
It all depends how loud you want me to talk for the studio audience. uh, my question is,
Mm-hmm.
we were talking about the NIT being older than the NCAA.
Yeah, the NIT started in 1938, which, by the way, is turning 80 years of age this year. The NIT is turning 80 years of age this year. The NCAA tournament started in 1939.
But it lost its prestige because
The NIT lost its prestige because of a couple of things. One, there was a really bad point shaving scandal that broke out in the 50s. Two, television really boosted the NCAA tournament's profile and killed the NIT's profile. And three, UCLA's dominance in the NCAA really raised the eyebrows of a lot of programs around the country. Not only that, but they saw all of the drama that was going on in the tournament because UCLA, in spite of the fact that they won 7 national titles in a row in the late 60s to early 70s, and also 11 national titles in general, they had a really, really, really good share of dramatic moments that were involved. One of which was their famous game with Houston that took place in the old Astrodome back in 1968. It was a nationally televised game, and that wound up really raising the profile of college basketball around the country. And once the tournament rolled around, that's when things really started to kick in, and that's when the NIT really was pretty much an afterthought. It's become such an afterthought right now that even to this day, with the games being played at the Garden, the NIT semifinals and championship games are being played in front of 3/4 empty crowds at MSG.
Now, my question to you is, with the football schedules and with all the bowls that college football has and basketball has, right? The rankings is ridiculous. I think is more in football than it is in basketball. Do you agree or disagree?
Oh, without a doubt. Especially when they don't even play the games. When they have their preseason rankings, that's when all of the debate really begins. Of course, the real ranking takes place at the very end when the national title is decided, both in football and basketball. And this makes some critics question why even have a preseason poll in the first place or a midseason poll. If you really want to have a top 25 ranking, at least do that, I would say, mid-season, but specifically make it for the end of the season. The end of the season rankings are what really count.
Yeah, because when it comes to which football team goes to which bowl, and then you have teams that should make it in one bowl, but because they didn't beat a certain team, or it's very weird how they have the system set up, and they have, what is it, coaches, computer, and
it's the coaches poll, it's the
yeah,
computers, it's the Associated Press,
right,
and the coaches.
Right. That's all messed up to me.
There should be
That
one
is
poll
really
that counts,
messed
and there should be one poll that counts, and that's the Associated Press, because those are the guys that see all the games, cover all the games, talk to the coaches, talk to the players. They're the ones that actually know what's going on.
Do you think that the rankings in the NCAA and the NIT, are they better ranked this year or in past years as well?
I think in basketball, it's a little bit better this year simply because of the fact that there's been so much parity going on. Overall, probably the best team throughout the season has been Virginia. I would say Villanova is probably the second best team. Other than that, you've had a lot of musical chairs going on with these schools and their rankings. Football is the same way. I think there's been a little bit more consistency in football simply because of the fact that Alabama has been by far the best team probably in the last 5 years overall, regular season-wise, that is.
Right, the Crimson Tide. But the thing that kills me is they always have some type of controversy.
Yeah.
With, you know, a particular team being, let's say, 12-0, and the other team being 12-0, then they go, okay, well, let's see who they played to get there.
Yeah.
And you're undefeated. As long as you're undefeated, you should play. Two undefeated teams should be playing each other, not, okay, the other team is 12-1, and the other two teams are 13 wins and 0 losses. The ones that have 13 wins and 0 losses should be playing each other. And that all depends which division you're in as well.
Not only that, it's funny that you mentioned teams playing each other. Do you know a lot of these games are scheduled maybe 5 years in advance?
Oh, wow.
No one can foresee two teams squaring off against each other unless it were a national championship game. A lot of the schedules are made up 5 years in advance. A lot of it is money. A lot of it is where they want to play the game, whether it's at home, whether it's on the road. There are even schools who will not schedule each other because of a fear factor, fear of getting their program embarrassed. But a lot of it has to do with money.
No, the question I have for you is, okay, in the NCAA, women's or men's basketball, and in the football, right?
Right.
What has been the most atrocity, the most outrageous atrocity on a team that they should have been there but they didn't? Which team has gotten screwed, basically?
Well,
in your lifetime of watching, if you could name one or two.
I think a couple. There's been more than one instance of teams going to the NCAA tournament, but recently there's been a real outcry for St. Mary's College from California, simply because of the fact that they won 28 games this season, and even a few years ago, they won 30 games one season. They still did not get an invite. And it's not just St. Mary's either. There were instances where North Carolina in 2000, they had 13 losses during the year. Somehow, they wound up getting a bid, and Virginia, which swept them in the regular season, completely omitted from the NCAA tournament. And as it turns out, North Carolina wound up having a better run because they went to the Final Four that year. And it was also the year. It was also the year post Dean Smith, because at that time Dean Smith had already retired, and Bill Guthridge was the head coach at the time, and they were trying to push the guy out. So a lot of people thought that maybe North Carolina was not deserving of a tournament bid because, number one, they had a very mediocre season. They won only 18 games that year. And number two, a team that was more deserving, Virginia, wound up getting left out of the loop.
Yeah, do you think it's because of prestige, or money?
It definitely has a lot to do with prestige. Prestige has everything to do with it. They usually see a team that's done very well in the tournament in years past, and usually they'll get rewarded because of a past resume.
Right. And also in football, too, like the Gator Bowl and all. Do you think that there's been, I'm sure there has been teams that should have been there but didn't get in there?
Numerous times there have been schools that have deserved an NCAA tournament bid and or a national championship game bid, and they wound up not getting picked. Ohio State, Auburn, Boise State. There are schools who will not schedule Boise State because of the success that they've had in the last 10 years or so.
Man, if they actually had a bowl where all the top number one teams play, the people that have won their slot in their bowls, and then have an all-out bowl game, the ultimate bowl game to see who would win. Because that would be good, even though small schools, big schools, so on. But at least you have something better than what you have now. The system's not that good.
You know what they should do? Expand the playoff. They have a
Really?
I think they should expand the playoff in football. They've got 4 teams in football. Why don't you invite every conference champion and then pick the next 5 best teams, make it a 16-team playoff. And while you're at it, incorporate some of the older bowls in this game, like the Rose and the Sugar and the Fiesta and so on. That way you can decide a national champion through a really valid playoff system. The NCAA will never do it.
No, it's about money.
It is about money.
It's about money. And the exploitation that they do on those ball players, even though some of them do get scholarships, but that's not the same.
And
that's not the same.
They want to. It's all about money, and they want to keep their bogus bowl system, 90% of which is being played in front of 3/4 empty stadiums in the first place. I just don't get it.
Yeah. And how about the women? How about how the women?
If I'm not mistaken, I think the women are going to have their NCAA tournament selection show. I think they're having it either right now or in the next half hour or so. So
Right.
I think one thing is certain. UConn is going to be there.
Yeah, that's always a favorite. UConn has been up there. They have a real good track record.
And
UConn.
what happened? UConn cruised into the American Athletic Conference regular season and tournament title, which means once again they're going to be the number 1 overall seed.
Do they have different tournaments too? The same way as the men? Do they have
the women
NIT as well?
The women do have an NIT. I think that's the extent of their tournaments, though. They do have their women's tournament, which has only been around about 40 to 45 years or so, while the women's NIT has been around, I think, a good 15 to 20 years or so.
Oh, okay. Now, we've talked about that. Now, the pros. The pros, like the Jets and Giants, how are they faring? And again, we were talking about Drew Brees and Hixson and probably a cornerback.
Well,
what do you foresee? What would you foresee in the future? I mean, I know I've asked you this before, but let's say they get. Would it be okay to get Drew Brees and then get a good second-round quarterback, and then get wide receivers for Drew Brees and build up the offense? With the Jets and with the Giants, you got to build up, I guess, both.
Let me put it this
way. Okay.
If Drew Brees were 10 years younger, then the Jets would definitely go after him. But because he's approaching his 39th birthday,
right,
I don't think the Jets are going to be going after another 38 to 39-year-old quarterback. They already have Josh McCown as it is. What is the sense in getting another 38 to 39-year-old quarterback who is obviously in the twilight of his career? Not only that, Drew Brees is 50 times the quarterback that Josh McCown has always been. That's number 2. Number 3, the Jets still have their sights on Kirk Cousins. And from what I understand, he's only being offered 3-year contracts from a couple of teams already. And I'm already hearing that maybe the Broncos, maybe the Buffalo Bills, who traded Tyrod Taylor to the Browns, might have some interest in Kirk Cousins.
But would Cousins be a good fit for the Jets?
He would definitely fill a need for the Jets, but In the long term, Kirk Cousins would not be the best fit for the Jets. Short term, maybe. Long term, no way, no chance, no how. If I'm the Jets, I would definitely draft a quarterback. I would much rather see them draft either Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen or Sam Darnold or Josh Rosen than sign a guy like Kirk Cousins.
Where do they stand in the standings again for the NFL draft?
The Jets are picking 6th, and the Giants are picking 2nd.
Okay. Now, the Giants.
They just made a big, big trade with the Rams for defensive help. They wound up getting Alec Ogletree from the Rams. And Alec Ogletree is a linebacker who can really help out the pass rush, something that the Giants have desperately needed for 2 years now. So that's one need that the Giants wound up filling, is getting Alec Ogletree. And the fact that they only gave up a couple of draft picks for him, granted they were mid-round draft picks, but still, getting Alec Ogletree, a guy who's played some of his best. He is, I think, in his mid to late 20s.
Any injuries, major injuries that you know of?
No, he's been really durable for the Giants.
Okay.
In fact, I'm going to check on Alec Ogletree right now. See his bio.
Because my question then would be, all right, that's one thing that you fulfill for the Giants, but do the Giants need to plug a lot of holes?
Yes.
Or is it just one or two? Or even, you always need a couple of holes to fill, but
and we're looking at Alec Ogletree's bio right now.
Right.
He played his college ball at Georgia, and he's been in the league since 2013, except for 2015 when he's played only 4 games. The years 2013, 2014, 2016, and 2017, he has played every single game except for 1. And his overall numbers, 367 tackles, 5.5 sacks, 6 interceptions, 42 passes deflected, 12 forced fumbles, and a fumble recovery. That is definitely some hard work that he's going to be able to bring to the Giant defense this coming season.
Are the Giants better suited for defense or offense right now?
Right now, it's hard to say with the G-men because they were such a disappointment on each side of the ball. They couldn't run. Eli Manning was a disappointment. He didn't reach 4,000 yards in passing this year. He could only get to 3,000. So there's also the matter of the offensive line, which did nothing for him.
Was it because they were too old or injuries?
Injuries had something to do with it, but at the same time, there was not one single guy that the Giants could count on to try and plug a hole on either position on that line. Not only that, but their technique was abysmal. They had one guy, a left tackle, who kept committing multiple penalties over and over and over again, and a center who really could not make the proper calls to try and recognize defenses for his quarterback the majority of the season. So if I'm the Giants, I look at left tackle, and I would also look at center as well. The Giants need major additions on that offensive line.
With the number 2 pick, you would look for a center and a left tackle. Or would you look for a QB?
At number 2, if they wanted to really look for some offensive line help, they probably could trade down to get themselves an offensive lineman. But right now, with Eli Manning approaching the twilight of his career, they need a quarterback in the worst way. And even though I'm not really enamored with either of the guys that are out there, Rosen and Darnold, Baker Mayfield and Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson, I would think that with the right amount of coaching, maybe they could take themselves to the next level. And that's why the Giants have the quarterback coach that they do. maybe he might be able to turn things around for him.
The Giants are losing a couple of players as it is, correct?
Yeah.
They're losing older players like Odell, probably.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned Odell Beckham Jr. because, unfortunately, he wound up getting himself in hot water again. He wound up being videotaped with some girl who was allegedly doing cocaine.
Oh.
Take that for what it's worth, but if I'm Odell Beckham Jr. right now, I've got a lot of questions to answer. That's number one. Number two, the Giants also released Dominique Rodgers-Cromartie, so that's another loss that the Giants wound up cutting right there.
Dominique Warren-Cromartie? Wow.
Dominique Rodgers-Cromartie, DRC.
I haven't heard that last name in a long time, Cromartie. Warren Cromartie, I think it was.
I remember Warren Cromartie, yeah.
Wow.
I used to listen to his radio show in Miami many years ago.
Oh, wow.
Warren Cromartie was a really good ball player for the Expos, and also in Japan, too. He was a big star in Japan.
Yeah, but since the Giants are losing so many people, do you think they can get back their prestige, and in how many years it's going to take? It's going the right path.
Well, if they get a good quarterback and a real stud running back right now, they would be off in a pretty decent direction. And that's another thing. I think the Giants, if they decide not to get a quarterback, don't be surprised if you see them take Saquon Barkley as their every down running back. Take a lot of pressure off of Manning.
How about the Jets?
As for the Jets at number 6, I still think that they have quite a few options to look at number 6. Maybe take a quarterback, maybe take a running back. Don't be surprised if you see them maybe get a defensive player, though. I would see them maybe getting somebody in the secondary.
Well, if the Jets get Cousins, then supposing they get Cousins.
If they get Kirk Cousins, I'm not going to fall in love with the move, but I will understand why. They need a quarterback.
Right. But then you would get a wide receiver or quarterback. What would you get at that pick then?
At that
Would
pick,
you still go for a quarterback?
If they sign Kirk Cousins, look for the Jets to go elsewhere. And I would see them look at a defensive back because the Jets need secondary help in the worst way. Specifically, a cornerback.
Right. But I thought they were more offensive. They needed more offense with the defense.
Defensively, they're okay. But secondary is where I would look right now because that secondary is still vulnerable. Not only that, but the Jets, I still think, are strong enough, specifically with a kid like Leonard Williams and also with the young crop of linebackers that they have. I think they're still in decent enough shape in their front seven to make up for some things as they go.
Yeah, boy. I tell you, this is – oh, and I heard the 49ers were making a lot of noise too. And
yes, they did. They signed –
and the Cleveland Browns have a good-sized cap, and the Jets are second with $90 million in cap space. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
The 49ers signed Richard Sherman, who got released by Seattle, and the Cleveland Browns – I like the Jarvis Landry trade. Getting Jarvis Landry to be their receiver is golden. Don't necessarily like them getting Tyrod Taylor, but after all of the train wrecks that they've had at quarterback in the past, I mean, what could they possibly have to lose with Tyrod Taylor? And the guy that they had as their quarterback last year.
Who do you foresee them getting?
Well,
I think they got the number 1 pick.
The Browns have the first overall pick. My guess, don't be surprised if they see them get Saquon Barkley, because they might want to go with a Tyrod Taylor to Saquon Barkley dual threat in the backfield. And it makes sense. I mean, both guys can make plays with their feet, and they could probably do a lot to keep defenses honest. But if I'm the Browns, I would still look at them as maybe getting a quarterback in the event that Tyrod Taylor is not really in their future plans, because right now he's just a stopgap. And the kid that they had as their quarterback last year, Deshaun Kaiser, got traded. He wound up getting traded to Green Bay, so now he's going to be Aaron Rodgers' backup.
Oh, wow.
He's going into his second NFL season in such a much better situation than he had in Cleveland.
So right now in football, who's in worse shape right now and who's in good shape right now?
Who's in worse shape?
Yeah.
So, believe it or not, it is the Cleveland Browns, because they're making a whole bunch of moves. They got better at quarterback. They got better at receiver. They're getting an influx of draft picks. The Giants got much better at linebacker. The 49ers got significantly better in the secondary. As far as who's gotten worse,
yes.
There's
downside, upside, yeah.
Downside or upside? Well, I haven't seen, aside from Miami trading Jarvis Landry, they got much weaker at receiver right now. And quite frankly, I don't know who their top running back is going to be. This draft is going to be really, really big for them.
Is it loaded this year? Because every year it seems to be somewhat loaded.
It's much more loaded at quarterback, that's for sure. There's going to be at least 5 quarterbacks to consider in the first round. There's also really major depth on defense and on the offensive line. But defense is going to be a lot more depth this year. And as far as the quarterback situation is concerned, it's not going to be like 1983 where you had Jim Kelly and Dan Marino and John Elway and all the other guys. But this year, I think there are probably 5 kids who could probably have a really good shelf life in the league, at 10 years at least.
The last quarterback that had a high profile like that was Andrew Luck.
And except for the injuries that he's had for the last 2 years, Andrew Luck has done really well for himself.
Correct. Right. That is true.
Mm-hmm.
That's so true. And now, shifting gears, I want you to pick a song what describes the Knicks and the New Brooklyn Nets.
Pick a song that describes the Knicks and the Brooklyn Nets.
No, pick each song. Which song would you pick for the Knicks, or which song would you pick for the Nets?
Actually, for the Knicks, you ever heard that song, How Bizarre?
Yeah. How bizarre.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It gets more and more bizarre with this franchise with each passing day. And as for the Brooklyn Nets, the Benny Hill theme music.
Oh, wow.
That franchise cannot get out of its own way. I mean, seriously. But then again, what do you expect out of a franchise that has been forever the wicked stepsister or the ugly stepsister to the Knicks for the last 45 years?
Do you think that Prokhorov will trade the Nets?
What's that?
Eventually, do you think the person that owns the Brooklyn Nets, you think he'll get rid of him? He'll sell the team, Prokhorov?
If you mean Mikhail Prokhorov?
Yes.
Some of those rumors have died down a little bit, but there has been some talk that he might want to sell off his stake in the team. If not the entire stake, then maybe 50% of the team. It's got to go to somebody who can really turn the franchise around, because quite frankly, Nets fans have had their fill of 20-win seasons. Just like Knicks fans have had their fill of coming up on 5 consecutive years with no playoff games whatsoever.
Yeah, this is true. But, here's one as a Knicks fan. Here's
Mm-hmm.
what I don't like about the Knicks. Here's what I like about them. Here's what I don't like about them. The Knicks right now, they don't have decisiveness.
You think?
In Jets and Giants, they have decisiveness because they got players and so on. But with the Knicks, and even the Nets actually have some type of ground. You only have, with the Knicks, you have Porzingis and Frank Nikita, probably, if he's stable, and THJ, Tim Hardaway Jr.
Yeah.
But you have those things, but you have Enes Kanter probably going next year, Brooks going next year, O'Quinn leaving next year, Moutier leaving next year probably. No, not Moutier. Trey Burke probably leaving. You have all these people that have a lot of option contracts,
Yeah.
and you don't have that stability. You know you have Porzingis for at least 2 more years.
Mm-hmm.
You know you have Tim Hardaway Jr. for 3 years. You have that stability.
Yeah.
But you don't have, and with Frank and Nikita, those are the only 3 that you have stable people. Everybody else is the swinging door.
Yeah.
And that's where I see the Knicks not going in the right direction because there's always these holes that they go, okay, well, we're going to get this guy next year. Oh, we're going to try for this guy next year. And then there will be 1-year contracts, and you don't know if they're going to. Even Beasley is not a sure thing to stay with the team or not.
He's been okay.
You have a lot of teams that are optionally open.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I see with the Knicks. Now, the upside that I do see with the Knicks is that they are trying to get younger. They are trying. Now, younger doesn't mean better.
That's for sure.
They're trying a different method, not like the old days, because, as I said before, if Porzingis was there, he wanted to try to go to the playoffs. Now, what's it is to try to go to the playoff and not even get past the first round? You know, you're going to get loaded with veteran players. You haul out to the first round of the playoffs, and then let's say you don't make it. Then you've lost everything. So with the idea that they have now of getting younger, I like that idea, but there's no stability more as if, okay, well, what's going to happen in a year or two? You're giving me all these one-year contracts. That's what's scaring me about the Knicks. Now with the Nets, they have more stability. They have more players that are more stable that you know that, okay, this guy's coming back next year, the other guy's coming back next year. And they're not playing too badly. They're not playing great because they're losing massively. But
they've won 20 games this year. You're telling me they're not playing too badly? They've won 20 games. This team is woeful.
Yes, but they do have good players, though.
Individually, they have good players, but you put that team together right now as they stand, it is just an abomination. That's what's gone on with the New York pro basketball circuit in this town for the last overall 17 years. It has been a complete and utter abomination.
And remember what happened when they got Patrick Ewing? They said that it was fixed. Well, I'll tell you, I need another fix then, to get the number one.
Oh yeah, I know what you're talking about now.
Because Patrick Ewing, because when DeBusch had picked Patrick Ewing, if you see him, it seemed like he already knew ahead of time that he was going to get the number one pick in some cases.
Patrick was dying to go to New York and make his career there. He said, "Please let it be New York." He never ever envisioned himself going to Indiana. And that 1985 draft class, in addition to Patrick, that was a really impressive draft class.
Mullen was in that one,
yep,
right?
Chris Mullen was there. Detlef Schrempf. The late Wayman Tisdale was on that team as well. Benoit Benjamin, who fizzled out a little bit after 11 or 12 years, but still, that was a really, really heavy draft class that year.
Yeah. But I don't, you see, that's the thing. I mean, do you agree with me that Knicks, with all these one-year contracts, the direction that they seem to be going, it seems to be loosely around the clouds, as if they have a direction, but they don't.
Oh, they have a direction, all right. Their direction is going south. South as in going right down the tubes. It's been that way for 17 years. You know how many times they've made the playoffs in those 17 years? 4. There is no rhyme or reason to be that incompetent for that long. You know, there was a time.
I'm talking about for this year.
This year is no different than the previous couple of years. This year is no different than the previous 5 years combined.
Do you agree with what I just said, which is that they want to go young, but because of all these people that have one-year contracts, it seems that they don't have a direction, even though they're saying the direction is going young.
Oh, yeah, there's definitely some truth to that.
So that's what I'm trying to say. They're trying to do the right thing, but they're not showing me. They're showing me the groundwork, but they're not showing me stability.
You know, if they really want to lay the groundwork, why don't they just use more of their draft system? I mean, they already have Porzingis.
You done?
I'm praying to God that this kid makes a recovery in less than a year. That's number one. Number two, try and make some use of Frank Ntilikina and Damian Dotson. Stop giving them all of these garbage time minutes, especially Damian Dotson. Damian Dotson is a hell of a shooter. That's number two. Number three, Frank Ntilikina was drafted for a reason, because they needed a point guard. They got a young point guard that everybody was expecting so much out of. And for the record, Dennis Smith Jr., who wound up getting drafted after him by Dallas, is having a really, really good rookie season. And Frank Ntilikina is averaging barely 5 points a game.
That's something I always thought of, too, which is just because, let's say Dennis Smith Jr., the Knicks would have gotten him, would he have been good for the Knicks, considering the way? Do you get my point? Sometimes
we'll never know.
Sometimes when you're good at one team, doesn't mean you're going to play good in that other team, because of the atmosphere and whatever else is happening with that particular team.
I will never know, to be honest with you. Besides, it's too late to play coulda, woulda, shoulda. They just got to move forward after this.
I think, but that was a good pick. I think, to me, Frank Ntilikina was a good pick.
I thought Ntilikina was an okay pick. I wasn't in love with the pick. I mean, there were other players that they probably could have had, but Ntilikina was okay.
The Knicks are going probably with a forward this year in the draft pick.
You know, it's funny that you mentioned the coming draft that's taking place, because assuming that these underclassmen all declare, you might be seeing a really, really good-looking list of freshmen and sophomores and juniors that are going to be making their way into the draft. And one of the names that you mentioned to me in a text message not too long ago, I saw him play over the weekend. Excuse me. The more I saw him make big shots for his team, the more I thought to myself, this kid has a future in the pros. That kid is Mikal Bridges from Villanova. And let me tell you, he was making three-pointers. He was banging the boards. He was banging bodies. He was a spiritual leader for his team, and he did it really, really quietly, too. That is somebody that, quite frankly, the Knicks could use right now. Either him, maybe Miles Bridges from Michigan State. One of those two guys would be somebody that the Knicks should look at if they fall down to number 9.
Because they're number 8 right now,
Mm-hmm.
the Knicks. And let's say they pass Chicago at number 7. I think they should get a forward, even though they signed this other guy
Mm-hmm.
for a 2-year contract. Again, good player, good off the bench, gives them energy, gives them defense. But to me, the team's still up in the air.
Yeah.
Because let's say they get that guy. So you have Porzingis, and you have, who's the gentleman that you said?
Mikal Bridges.
Mikal Bridges. Okay, so you have Nikita starting.
He should be given starters minutes right now. I mean, they owe him that much. They're not going to make the playoffs for the umpteenth time.
Yeah.
They owe it to the kid. He was a number 1 pick for a reason.
Yeah. I mean, he's 19, and you don't want to kill his confidence either. And they want to try out Moutier and Trey Burke and Dotson as well. But also, you have trying to play power forward is THJ, Tim Hardaway Jr. He's trying to make him as a small forward, I should say. And I don't know how that's going to work, but let's assume that they get that guy that you just mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
So how does the team look?
Well, by him by himself, it won't. It's not going to make them an overnight sensation. But I will say this much: he will give them a lot of tough defense. He'll give them good mid-range shooting. He'll give them an occasional 3 here and there. Most importantly, he's going to give them a lot of toughness underneath because he is a big, strong kid with a real mean streak to him.
So you would have him as forward and Porzingis as forward, and let's say they keep Cantor at center.
That's another thing. Who saw Enes Kanter emerging as the Knicks' second best player? He's done everything asked of him this season. And now that Porzingis is hurt, Enes Kanter is their best player.
Yeah.
Bring him back, please.
You really think so?
They have to. I just find it really coincidental that when he played for Oklahoma City for a year and a half, he barely got the ball playing with Russell Westbrook. But now that he's got Kristaps Porzingis, a guy who doesn't necessarily have to demand the ball, but has to get the ball because there's no other superstar working with him, Enes Kanter has become their second best player.
But defensively, he's not.
Oh, defensively, he's painful to watch.
But
I'll tell you what, though.
That other guy, if you get Porzingis and the other guy, they actually have good defensive front court.
Yeah. Of course, the kid that I really would like to see make his way to the New York area, either as a Knick or as a Net, is probably Marvin Bagley Jr. from Duke because he's the total package. But right now, my guess is he probably goes to either the Sacramento Kings or the Phoenix Suns or the Atlanta Hawks or the Chicago Bulls.
Yeah, because right now, and even like I said, even with the Nets right now, how do you see them in the future?
How do I see in the Knicks?
How do you see the Knicks? I mean, you see the Knicks in the future. They somewhat, like I said, I think, going in the right direction, even though you got to figure out how they're going to pick in 2019 and 2020. But how do you see the Nets?
How do I see the Brooklyn Nets? At least they're going to have a little bit better future than the Knicks are because you know why? Because the Nets have a general manager who's got a championship pedigree Sean Marks, a guy who won a couple of championships with the Spurs. At least he knows what kind of team he wants to have. He wants to have a young team that's going to play exciting basketball, that's going to try and up the tempo a little bit, both in the backcourt and on the front line.
Right. So, like I said, the Nets they seem to have like a better ship to sail than the Knicks.
Not only that,
like
but
I said, the Knicks seem to be up throwing potatoes upstairs.
Not only that, but look at what the Knicks, what the Brooklyn Nets have for their younger players, though.
Especially the way they did it too, without draft picks or anything of that nature.
D'Angelo Russell, Rondae Hollis-Jefferson, Karis LeVert, Isaiah Whitehead. Those are 4 guys that they could probably build around and make a potential contender down the road.
Well, we got about a couple of minutes left.
Yeah.
Ken Singleton is leaving the New York Yankees boot. He's retiring next year.
Yeah. It's really sad to hear that he's going to be leaving the Yes Network boot.
He's looking good, and Michael Kay's trying to convince him not to retire.
Wait, how old did you say Ken Singleton is?
70.
He looks terrific for 70.
Yes.
I'll tell you what. He does. Singleton has had about as solid a broadcasting career as anybody else that I know. And this is pre-Yes Network, too. He was there when the Yankees were on the MSG network, and he's always been steady. He's called games right down the middle. He's been really, really understated, yet at the same time, very, very professional. He's really going to miss it. He's really going to be missed in the Yes Network booth if he does want to retire.
Like I said, Michael Kay's trying to get him unretired. The New York Yankees also signed a player too.
Yeah, Neil Walker, the ex-Met. And this is definitely to get depth at second base. And Neil Walker is a really safe yet steady signing for the Yankees. He gives them good defense. He gives them contact hitting. He'll give them occasional power. But now you figure you've got Greg Bird at first, Neil Walker at second, Didi Gregorius at short, and possibly the kid that they wound up getting from Arizona, Brandon Drury, playing third. That's a pretty solid outfield right there. A more than capable infield, I should say. A more than capable infield for them.
I'm telling you, the Yankees are going to be if everything goes right, the Yankees are going to be dangerous everywhere.
Tell you what.
There's no.
They're going to be dangerous everywhere, wrong. But I'll tell you this: when late April comes around, and they're teeter-tottering around 500, I cannot be hearing people saying this was a bust of a season. They play 162 games. Let's see them get them through April, May, June, July, August, and September, and then you can get back to me and talk about the kind of season that they had.
Because that's the thing. Once you make it to the playoffs and you made it that far, they're expecting you to make it to the World Series. And it's like, wait a minute now. You still have the sophomore jinx kicking in or something of that nature if you believe in jinxes.
Yep.
But, things happen. Things could happen. Steinbrenner has said that he's willing to spend money to get over the hump or to get whatever he needs to improve the team. Because you're there, you're at the cusp. If everybody's okay and nobody really gets hurt, you have a good solid bench. You have a good solid team.
Mm-hmm. Well,
everywhere you go.
Unfortunately, Kenny just gave me the wrap-up sign, so we got to go right now. Hector, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much once again, and I'll talk to you soon. Take care. God bless. Everybody stay okay. Easy peasies. And Jaime, take it away.
Can you also tell Rosanna to please have a speedy recovery soon?
Let her say hi.
And to everybody out there, hi there.
Hi there, and goodbye.
Life and sports.